About a month and a half ago, I beat Batman Arkham Asylum without dying. It's essentially like playing Batman Arkham Origins I Am the Night mode, but because all three other installments don't have that mode unfortunately, we decided to just make the mode on our own. In other words, the rules are, you have to play through the entire campaign without dying a single time. And, if I do die, I have to restart. And because you're looking at the title and thinking, well, there is no I Am the Night mode in Batman Arkham City. To which I would say, you are correct. However, this is just a fun little challenge that I wanted to try and see if I could make it done much easier than Batman Arkham Asylum. And if you guys are new around here, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content. We're trying to get to 1,000 subs by the end of the year. And if we do get to 1,000 subs by the end of the year, I will play all 4 Batman Arkham games in one day. And without further ado, let's get into Batman Arkham City's I Am the Night mode. So the game starts off, we're playing as Catwoman, and this was going to be my least favorite part of this game, playing the game as frickin' Catwoman. I do not like the Catwoman sections in this game whatsoever. Not that I was worried to die, especially not in the first 2 segments of the game. However, I just don't like playing as Catwoman, and if I was to die playing as Catwoman, that would be even more annoying than having died as Batman, because it's a character that isn't even necessarily an important part of the game, in my opinion at least. Once we're done running through Two-Face's thugs, we do unfortunately run into one Hugo Strange who has captured Bruce Wayne and says it was so much easier than catching Batman, and threatens that if Batman tries to stop his plan, aka Protocol 10, he's going to reveal Batman's secret identity. Once Hugo Strange has done his dumb little monologue, we do eventually end up getting to escape out of here, but not before running into Penguin and some of his thugs, who does knock Bruce Wayne unconscious, and we wake up to our first encounter of this game. Of course, Penguin, not knowing that Bruce Wayne is Batman, does of course get a little bit cocky, have, his thugs throw Bruce Wayne here to the ground. However, because he doesn't know that Bruce Wayne is Batman, he gets a little bit cocky, and Batman is able to counter his left hand beautifully and break his wrist. And of course, we had to knock Oswald Cobblepot out. He's an annoying little twerp. But honestly, playing as Bruce Wayne was actually extremely entertaining, and this is actually a very fun little combat encounter to start the game. Something nice and easy. However, I don't understand how the thugs or nobody pick up on the fact that Bruce Wayne is such a good fighter and can take on multiple thugs and strikes as a similar way as Batman does, but whatever, we're not going to play logic police here. And once we're done beating up these little thugs, we make our way up to the rooftop of Ace Chemicals so that we can have our Batman Arkham City suit up scene, or what some might call Batman pornography, I'm just going to say. Now, once we're done suiting up, we have to go to the courthouse because Two-Face has taken Catwoman hostage. So this is going to be our first actual hostage/thug encounter that we're going to get to play as Batman in this game. And once Harvey Dent is dealt with, we do actually see that the Joker attempts a shot at Catwoman, shooting it through the courthouse window, so we need to figure out the trajectory of where the bullet came in from, so we can figure out where the shot came from. And this leads us to the church, where we encounter Harley Quinn, and have our first stealth segment of this game. But honestly, playing this game so much at this point, this section is super easy. There's honestly never really been a threat here. And once we make our way up to the roof, we find the remote control gun, as well as Joker rigging up several bombs throughout the course of this room, meaning we gotta get out of here real quick, otherwise Joker's gonna blow us up and it's gonna be game over. And this is where the game really gets started. We track a signal to figure out the Joker's location, and surprise, surprise, he is in the Sionis steel mill. If the frickin' big old Joker signs outside the walls and the carnival and everything couldn't tell you for you, well, there you go, you got a signal telling you. However, we do manage to get into the steel mill, and like I said, this is where the game, in my opinion at least, really gets started in terms of the open world gameplay. And after making our way through the Sionis steel mill, we do encounter a handful of Joker's thugs. However, nothing really here to give us too much trouble. This is just the biggest combat encounter of the game to this point, and it is starting to get a little bit harder as you play more and more. And following yet what I would call another tutorial section where there's 3 Joker thugs and you have to take them out, we do have our first actual stealth section of this game, which, in my opinion, not too difficult, even though that this is actually on New Game Plus, and still not too much trouble given here to me at least. And after making our way back towards the Joker's hideout spot, we do encounter Mr. Hammer, the one-armed absolute legend of this game, who kicks us straight off the balcony, and we are forced to have a little encounter with him. However, once you've beaten him once, This guy is a piece of cake. Hit him a few times, jump over his back, hit him a few more times, rinse and repeat until you eventually take him out. And the other thugs don't really cause you too much issue. See, because Mr. Hammer can actually help you if you quick fire the remote electrical charge. He will swing his hammer around in a circle, hence taking out the other thugs in the area. And after the Joker absolutely swindles us, absolutely tricks us into thinking he's dead, Batman has been captured, which means we are playing the second Catwoman portion of this game. And oh my gosh, like I said earlier, I do not like these Catwoman sections whatsoever. However, they are mandatory. You do have to play it if you have the Game of the Year edition or if you have that installed. So, unfortunately, I can't skip it. I have to just play the section. And honestly, the Catwoman sections make me more nervous than the actual Batman sections. Because I've played Batman Arkham City so many times at this point, you would think that Catwoman's also a piece of cake to use. However, like I've mentioned before, her combat is extremely hit or miss. She's either too fast or too slow, a bit clunky in my opinion, doesn't really flow too well with the overall combat system in my opinion. But however, we do manage to make our way towards Poison Ivy, where we have to go through the 3 stages of her little thugs almost. They're not even her thugs, they're, people that she has under hypnosis. However, we do manage to defeat every single one of them before, Poison Ivy catches us into a trap, and we don't have to play as Catwoman for several more hours. So honestly, I'm a little bit relieved that she got captured here, low-key. After the Joker lets us go and kicks us out of a window, we have to make our way to find Mr. Freeze, because he's the only person who can manufacture this cure that Joker and Batman need if they want to live. So we make our way to the GCPD, where we find Penguin's thugs outside the GCPD, and once we make our way inside, we have yet another stealth encounter to deal with here. And the good thing about this encounter is that when you get to the last thug, they will always drop their gun to be interrogated, because you have to get the information of where Penguin is and how to get to Mr. Freeze. With this information that Penguin is in the museum, we make our way towards the museum and we head inside. However, once we go inside, we cannot make our way in because he has these disruptors that we basically have to destroy in order to continue. And it turns out there are 3 disruptors, and we have to destroy each and every one at 3 different locations. So this is where the game starts to get a bit interesting for me. The first section has a handful of unarmed thugs, nothing really major here, about 5 or 6 thugs that don't really do any sort of damage, and they're pretty easy to deal with. So we're off to a pretty good start here so far. The second encounter, however, is where I start to run into a bit more trouble. You see, there are armed thugs that have a tendency, I swear, of only turning around literally as soon as I walk up behind them and they try to shoot me and kill me, especially with their frickin' shotguns that are basically a one-tap. So I have to be extremely careful, and I almost die here because of this. And as we destroy these 3 jammers, and we make our way to the third and final one. And this is where I make what some people would probably call a very crucial error, and would probably say you probably shouldn't have done that. Hindsight, you are absolutely correct. And I'm gonna, kind of get into this here, and I just want to preface this by saying, please do not make fun of me or I'm gonna cry. But I was basically making my way to the 3rd disruptor jammer, and as I did that, I went to go glide underground, and there's the 2 armed thugs that sit side by side, and while there, I accidentally kind of, I misglided, is that a word? I misglided a little bit, and I was shot and immediately killed. And I had to restart all over because of basically a tactical error on my part. I tried to slide down, but there just wasn't anything I could do. I was absolutely cooked. And with that is my first death of this run. I didn't think it was going to come from this, but honestly, having a mistake like that just shows I'm human and I make mistakes. And I knew immediately what I did wrong. If I had thrown a smoke pellet in there, everything would have been fine. But I do delete the save file, and I have to restart, but I can't do it on New Game Plus. Now, basically, I don't want to bore you with a bunch of extra details, but I start the game over and it goes as follows. I beat the first section as Catwoman. I go ahead and escape Hugo Strange. I go ahead and defeat Harvey Dent and save Catwoman in the courthouse. I then go to the church where I once again save a bunch of medics and take out Joker's thugs in the process. After that, I do escape the bomb tower once again, where I make my way to the steel mill, and I take out a bunch of thugs from the Joker, take out Mr. Hammer, and on top of that, go back to the GCPD, stop Penguin's thugs, interrogate Penguin's thugs, blah, blah, blah. I basically get back to where I was exactly at. That's basically the point I wanted to get to here. And this time, I learned my lesson from last time. I threw a smoke pellet and made my way down into the tunnel here, where we also immediately just take out a couple penguin thugs, because of course we have to, but also, like, who doesn't like a good old double takedown? And as we make our way into the final room, we do have to deal with another stealth section. However, none of these stealth sections are really a big worry for me personally, especially when you're not on New Game Plus. There's no armored thugs that you have to deal with, and in Batman Arkham City, you can backlaw people over the edge, even though that guy didn't go unconscious somehow, but whatever. Anyways, we take care of the thugs with absolute ease, and we finally make our way back to the museum, and no more halts, no more running around. We get to finally get our hands on the penguin and beat this guy. Now, despite the fact our next encounter is in a room full of like 25 thugs, these ones are very easy to take out in particular, because these guys aren't affiliated in any sort of gang, and these guys, for some reason, I think they just have like lower health and don't hit as hard. These guys are the easier of the gangs to take out, so having so many of them in one room isn't really too much of an issue. However, this is the room where we have our first boss battle against the Titan that we also fought against in Batman Arkham Asylum. However, you don't take those guys out the same way that you took out the Titans in Arkham Asylum. Instead, you have to ultra stun them by pressing B 3 times, then doing a beatdown, hop on their back, try to do damage to the other thugs, and do that 3 times before you can eventually finally take them out for good. Now, once we're done dealing with these thugs, we do make our way into this, I don't even know what you would call it, some type of pool lounge area that he does keep his little pet shark in. However, we do have to save these cops here before we do continue and go and fight that little twerp midget. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, this room always makes me a little bit nervous because of the fact that if you fall in the water and you misstep slightly, you are dead, and I would have to restart the game from the very beginning, and I really didn't want to do that. So I was really putting emphasis to make sure that I was close enough to where I could step onto the platform safely and move on to deal with Mr. Freeze and the Penguin. Now, once we do save those cops that are covered in ice, we do make our way towards Mr. Freeze. And as we go to our explosive jar our way into the room, bang! Mr. Sickle hits us with the left right. He basically tosses us across the room here. This is the other Abramovich twin from earlier, if you remember Mr. Hammer. However, with Mr. Abramovich here, it's the exact same. Jump over him after you hit him a few times, and then you'll eventually knock him out. The only difference is that he swipes side to side instead of overhead, but you can still jump over him the same. Nothing really changes with that whatsoever, and we deal with a few little thugs here with ease. After that, Mr. Freeze does tell us that we need to go get his suit and get a little override feature in his suit, as that's the only way to be able to stop penguins. So we have to make our way across the ice here and make ourselves our way into the other room. And this is actually where we deal with the first different type of armed thug. It's nothing really too crazy, nothing really too difficult. However, this guy basically has thermal enhanced imaging, where if you are hiding on a gargoyle and he can see you, he will shoot you immediately. He can scan to see if there's bodies there, human heat essentially. As well as the hostages in this room, you have to be very careful with who and when you take someone out. If I was to attack the bridge immediately, I've never had it happen, but I'm pretty sure that the hostages would get shot. And if the hostages get shot, it's game over for me as well. So I don't even have to die for the game to end. However, because of the gunshots and the noise made previously, most of the thugs make their way downstairs, where I'm able to take out a solo guy here with a ledge takedown, as well as take out these last 2 thugs, and we're able to save the hostages and get Mr. Freeze's suit back and get the override feature. So now it's time to go to the Iceberg Lounge and finally take the Penguin out. And as we make our way over to the Iceberg Lounge, we actually do disrupt the Penguin's gun here. However, he actually is able to get a couple shots off because I guess I let go of the trigger and I didn't realize I wasn't allowed to do that. However, I did eventually get him close enough, hit him with a massive uppercut. Honestly, this should have killed him. This should have unalived the Penguin here. But for some reason, the little sturdy little midget is able to survive. And this is where we get the second boss battle of the game, also known as Solomon Grundy. Oh my goodness, this guy is absolutely massive. However, it's not really too difficult of a boss battle. It's 3 pads that you have to quick explosive gel and then take them out. You have to do this 3 times, rinse and repeat, and it gets slightly harder as it goes on. Like, he'll swing his, I almost want to say his balls at me, but hold on, no diddy. Swing his balls at me, as well as send his little a little mice at me on the ground, but nothing really too major to deal with here, but this is kind of a cool boss battle nonetheless. And once Solomon Grundy is dealt with, we do have a little 1v1 action with the Penguin, pause, where you do an absolute beatdown. You can take it down however you please, and I'm going to beat him down. Especially for knocking Bruce Wayne out earlier, we were not going to let that slide. So we beat down on the Penguin, where he is finally secured, and Mr. Freeze is saved, so now we can finally start working on our frickin' cure. Now, it is determined that the only way to make a cure is found in Ra's al Ghul's blood due to a specific enzyme he has. However, one of Ra's al Ghul's League of Assassins, is able to escape, unfortunately, when she finds out that the only way is through Ra's al Ghul's blood. So, which means we have to track her blood that basically she was leaking when she jumped out the little window cage thing. So we have to track her down and basically figure out where Ra's al Ghul is hiding. However, the blood trail does run out, so we have to basically scan the evidence, aka the bandages here, to figure out where this League of Assassins assassin could have went, when we absolutely get jumped on, and we have to chase this assassin down and stop her, and basically interrogate her for information. Now, once Batman places a tracker on her, it actually leads us to the underground sewers, where we do find Ra's al Ghul's little secret hideaway, I guess you can call it, where we do have yet another boss encounter, which this, in my opinion, is top 3 boss fights in the series, and one that actually gave me a pretty good run for my money. I think I underestimated the difficulty of it just a little bit, because there was a point where I was almost on the verge of dying, but of course, I was able to just squeak through that, and to be honest, I probably shouldn't have underestimated it, but I think I got a bit too overconfident in my capabilities. Which directly after this boss fight takes us to another boss fight in Mr. Freeze, the one that a lot of people, have regarded as the greatest boss fight in the entire franchise. Honestly, in my opinion, this boss fight shouldn't have existed, but I've already made a video talking about that if you guys want to go check it out. But basically, I take on Mr. Freeze here. And the thing is with the Mr. Freeze boss fight, to me, it's not necessarily super difficult. However, there are certain challenges in terms of, I always seem to forget 1 or 2 things that I need to use to take out Mr. Freeze. Like, I might forget about this gel explosive takedown. I might forget about a takedown from the grates or something. There's always like one that I forget about that can kind of get me into a bit of trouble. But ultimately, we do end up beating Mr. Freeze here without too much difficulty. I just forgot about like 2 more of the types of takedowns to take out Mr. Freeze, but eventually we do end up taking him out. And even though this boss fight obviously gets easier the more you play it, the first time you play this, I guarantee you, almost every single person died trying to take out Mr. Freeze because they just couldn't figure out another type of takedown to take him out with, because Mr. Freeze does not allow you to use the same takedown more than once. And as soon as we defeat Mr. Freeze, we find out that Harley Quinn broke in somehow during the altercation and stole the cure, which means we need to go get it. However, as soon as we leave the GCPD, Vicky Vale's helicopter gets shot down by, I'm assuming, one of the Joker's thugs, which needs us to go save her. Now, that part isn't very difficult at all. You take out a few armed thugs with snipers who can't see you. That part's the easy part. But while you're off doing that, Joker is beefing up security, which you need to be extremely cautious about because there are a bunch of snipers around the course of Joker's section that makes it very, very difficult to even get through that. So you have to be very careful, otherwise you can get shot and killed very easily by one of Joker's thugs. And that in itself, it doesn't seem too difficult, but it is just something that you need to work around because that's like the one point in the game where gliding throughout the course of the city can get you killed on its own. But now that we've finally entered the steel mill, our next encounter does not come until another thug section. This is our 4th last stealth section of this game, if you include the Catwoman section, which I personally don't really care for. But this is the part of the game where we get introduced to the mines, where it does get used one more time after this in the second last stealth section. But honestly, I don't think this should have been introduced this late in the game, just because to me personally, it kind of just feels like an annoyance to introduce something this late into the game when it hasn't even really been talked about at all up until this point. But I did go get that disruptor upgrade so that I can blow up these little mines, I guess you could say, just because I don't want to accidentally run into one, die, and have to restart the run all over again. No thank you. So we managed to complete this room, and then it's on to the Joker, Titan, and Mr. Hammer boss fight, which honestly, I do like that section a lot. The last time I played it, it gave me a lot of problems, so I was looking forward to coming back with a vengeance this time and defeating it on the first try and settling that score for once and for all. To which we finally are able to beat this thing on the first try after last time's failure. So we beat this, however, we do get crushed by a frickin' roof of all things, which causes us to now have to play as Catwoman for the last time in the main campaign. And honestly, I do not like it. I know you have to do it one more time after, but I wasn't gonna do it more than I had to. I ended up beating this section here, and Catwoman is still hung up. So we have to go down into the sewers, and it kind of does interfere with Stranger's Protocol 10 plan, and whether or not you think that's convenient is up for debate. However, we do have to make our way down here into the sewers thanks to the help of Poison Ivy in exchange for helping out her precious little plants. Now, not only as Catwoman do you have to take out these thugs, or aka Tiger Guards, I guess you could say, you also have to pickpocket them before you can do that, so that they don't lock the vault and you can get your stuff back. However, I'm always extremely nervous for the pickpocket sections, because it is so easy to get caught, especially because it's in such a tiny space and there's not really a whole lot of spots you can go. So you have to be extremely careful to not get the vault shut on you. So I was very, very quick to get in and out with picking these little pockets here. And we were able to do this on the first try, which then leads us to the stealth section, which honestly was a lot easier than I remember it being. I used to remember when I would play this, and I would remember how difficult it was just because of the such tiny space of this room. And the Tiger Guards are the toughest, thugs to deal with in general throughout the course of the Arkham series. So I thought I was going to have more of a challenge on my hands. However, we got through that quite easily, and after taking out some more thugs, we basically finish off the night as Catwoman when she leaves to go save Batman, and she is able to save him, and we are able to finally go ahead and stop Protocol 10. Now, after scanning these 5 helicopters to get the Master Control program, we are able to go over to Wonder Tower and finally enter it for the first time in this game. And honestly, when you play this for the first time, you're very excited to see what could be inside this, absolute monster of a tower that you're not allowed to enter throughout the course of the game. So it's obviously very exciting to get to this point of the game where we do make our way up to our final stealth sections of this game, the final 2 of this game, where there's like 8 thugs in the room to start off with, but we had already done a stealth section earlier, so it wasn't going to be too challenging necessarily. It was just going to be more the fact that they're Tiger thugs this time instead of Joker's thugs, so it's a bit of a different element. However, we do get through that room and we make our way up to the tower, and as we are making our way up, once again, I remember thinking that this final stealth section is the one that always gave me the most amount of problems, just simply due to the fact that it's kind of a tiny confined space. But not just that, with Hugo Strange constantly yelling, Batman's over there he is, there's his location, it makes it harder to kind of be sneaky about your attacks. So that's why usually I stuck around to the outside. However, this time I was able to get through them quite easily, especially ever since I found out about the Bat Claw hack where you could pull them over the edge of, counters and whatnot. Then it kind of became extremely easy for me to take out thugs like this. And after Hugo Strange gets stabbed in the back, activates Protocol 11, and Wonder Tower blows up into bits, then we have to take on our final section of this game, going to save Joker from Talia, who has taken Talia hostage. And of course, everyone probably saw this one coming. However, we do make our way over to the theater, where I guess there is technically another stealth section that is... this one's a lot easier though, so it's not really one I'd worry about too much. As long as you're smart and you can keep your wits about you, you should be okay. But basically, there's like probably 8 to 10 snipers that are all covering the entrance, and you basically start off at the back and you just make your way up forward and taking out each one, because none of them are facing opposite directions. They're all looking the same way, so it's easy to sneak up behind them and take them out, which introduces us to the Clayface boss fight. Now, while this one has never really given me too many issues necessarily, especially not the first phase, the second phase is usually where I get the most amount of problems, just because there's so many of these freaking clay thugs swinging at you, and once in a while when Clayface pops up to hurl his little clay balls at you, it can be a bit challenging, but this was the final challenge, and I knew that if I died here, I was going to be very annoyed, and I was not going to be very happy. I was not going to be very interested and starting it over again. Not today. So, to finish it off, we do end up defeating Clayface. Of course, with a little bit of challenge, but nothing really too crazy. A lot of these boss fights have been getting easier, especially since I've been practicing my combat a lot more. It's been getting a lot better. So in turn, everything's become a lot easier with the boss fights, obviously. And we've made it to the end where the Joker dies, and honestly, this was a lot easier than Batman Arkham Asylum. I should have completed this on the first try, but I made a blunder and I messed up, and I paid the price for it, so I had to go through it again. However, outside of this, I didn't have too many issues, except maybe a bit of a close call with a Ra's al Ghul fight, but honestly, it was fun playing this on live stream, to be honest with you. Like, I enjoy the community. However, going forward, I think I'm going to take a step back from challenge videos and take more of a step forward into just playing some new games and maybe just reviewing them and giving my opinions on them. That might be the direction this channel goes down, is a opinion-based essay review style videos. We're going to figure it out as we go along. We're going to go through this together, and I thank each and every one of you for your awesome support. I have nothing but praise to say about you guys, and I just want to say thank you so much for all the support you guys give me. And for those of you who might not believe this is legitimate, you can check these out on live streams. Everything's 100% legitimate. And thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe for more. Peace!